Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This video is about the true crimes of the 2000s, but you'll notice I'm not covering the most famous cases. And that's because I already covered them in other videos, and it just doesn't make sense to repeat the same ones over and over again. I'm thinking I might upload another part, depending on the response to this one, and that video could be 3 or 4 hours long and would include most of the 2000s cases, both the ones I've already covered and completely new ones that aren't in this video. The early 2000s were a unique time. Technology was evolving fast, social media was just starting to emerge, and the world felt like it was shifting in big ways. But behind all of that, there were still dark and disturbing cases happening, many of which didn't get the attention they deserved. Anyway, let's get started. Enjoy. The Black Widow, Stacy Castor, 2005 to 2009. Stacy Castor was born on July 24, 1967 in Clay, New York. She grew up in a nearby town called Weedsport, close to Syracuse. When she was 17 years old, she met a man named Michael Wallace. They got married in 1988 and had 2 daughters together, Ashley and Bree. Michael worked as a mechanic at night while Stacy worked during the day for an ambulance company. Because of their opposite work schedules, they didn't see each other much. They also struggled with money. Their relationship became worse over time, and there were rumors that both Michael and Stacy were having affairs. In late 1999, Michael began to feel very sick. He was tired all the time, couldn't stand properly, and said he felt drunk even though he hadn't been drinking. On January 11, 2000, he was found unresponsive on the couch. He later died. His daughter Ashley, who was 11 at the time, was with him and blamed herself for what happened. Doctors said he likely died from a heart attack. Michael's sister didn't believe that, but Stacy didn't allow an autopsy. 3 years later, in 2003, Stacy married another man named David Castor. She worked as the office manager in his air conditioning business. In August 2005, Stacy called the police and said that David had locked himself in their bedroom after they argued. She said he had been inside for a full day and wouldn't answer his phone. When police broke down the door, they found David dead. Near him was a bottle of antifreeze and a glass with green liquid in it. At first, police thought he had taken it willingly, but later they noticed some strange things. Stacy's fingerprints were on the glass, but David's were not. A turkey baster with David's DNA and antifreeze on it was also found in the trash. Police began to suspect that Stacy poisoned him. The police started watching Stacy closely. They also dug up Michael's body and found antifreeze in his system too. Both of her husbands had died the same way. In 2007, the police told Ashley, now older, that her father Michael had died from antifreeze poisoning. After that, Stacy invited Ashley over to her house and gave her a drink. The next day, she did the same thing. Later, Ashley was found unconscious in her bed by her sister Bree. Next to Ashley was a printed note that seemed like a confession. It said that Ashley had killed both her father and stepfather. Stacy gave the note to paramedics. Ashley was rushed to the hospital and was very close to death. Doctors found a huge amount of pills in her system. Luckily, Bree found her in time. When Ashley woke up, she said her mother had made her a drink that night, which was unusual. She also said she didn't write the note. Investigators found that the note had been written on a computer while Ashley was at school. It had Stacy's fingerprints, not Ashley's. Police arrested Stacy Castor. She was charged with murdering David, trying to kill Ashley, and changing David's will to remove his son. She was not charged with killing Michael, but his death was used as evidence in court. In 2009, Stacy was found guilty on all charges. She was given 25 years to life for David's murder, 25 more years for trying to kill Ashley, and up to 4 more years for forgery. She would have been eligible for parole in 2055, but she died in prison in 2016 at age 48. Her death was caused by a heart attack, and no foul play was suspected. Stacy Castor is remembered as a woman who poisoned 2 husbands and tried to blame her own daughter to avoid getting caught. The murder of Meredith Kercher, 2007. In late 2007, a shocking murder took place in the Italian city of Perugia. Meredith Kercher, a 21-year-old student from England, was found dead in the apartment she shared with other students. She had been stabbed and possibly assaulted. The case quickly gained attention around the world. Amanda Knox, an American student from Seattle, was one of Meredith's housemates. Amanda had only recently moved to Perugia to study. She had just started dating an Italian student named Raffaele Solicito. Both Amanda and Raffaele became the main suspects in the case, even though there was no clear physical evidence linking them to the murder. The police said Amanda's behavior was strange and accused her of being involved in a strange, intimate game gone wrong. Soon after the murder, Amanda, Raffaele, and Amanda's boss at a bar, Patrick Lumumba, were arrested. Amanda, under pressure, falsely said that Patrick had killed Meredith. She later said the police scared her into signing the statement. Patrick was released when police found no evidence against him. Then came a break in the case. Police found DNA, fingerprints, and other evidence pointing to a man named Rudy. He had a history of crimes and had recently been caught breaking into places. He admitted to being in the house that night, but claimed someone else killed Meredith. Still, his DNA was found all over the scene, including on Meredith's body and clothes. Despite this, Amanda and Raffaele were still on trial. The police found a knife at Raffaele's house that they said had both Amanda's and Meredith's DNA, but later experts said this evidence was not reliable. Rudy Guade was tried separately and was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to 30 years, which was later reduced to 16. Amanda got 26 years in prison and Raffaele got 25, but both kept saying they were innocent. In 2011, they appealed the decision, and new experts said the evidence against them was weak or contaminated. That same year, their convictions were overturned and Amanda returned to the U.S. But the case wasn't over. Italy's highest court ordered another trial. In 2014, Amanda and Raffaele were found guilty again. Amanda stayed in the U.S. and didn't return to Italy. Finally, in 2015, the Italian court cleared both Amanda and Raffaele of the murder, saying there was not enough evidence. Amanda was only found guilty of falsely accusing Patrick Lumumba. So why did Amanda and Raffaele get blamed in the first place? There were three major problems. Rudy's DNA was all over the scene. He was clearly involved, but gave confusing stories to the police. The prosecutor believed in wild theories about satanic rituals and intimate games. When Rudy was found guilty, he still tried to blame Amanda and Raffaele. News outlets published a lot of false and dramatic stories. This made the public and even jurors believe Amanda was guilty before seeing real evidence. Rudy served his full sentence and is now free. He still says Amanda was involved, but there is no strong evidence to prove it. In the end, many believe that Rudy acted alone. The Craigslist Killer, Philip Markoff, 2009. On April 13, 2009, a man named Philip Markoff responded to an ad on Craigslist. The ad was posted by a woman named Julissa Brisman. She was offering companionship. Philip, who was engaged to be married, went to a hotel to meet her. But instead of a friendly meeting, things turned very dark. Once the hotel room door was closed, Philip attacked Julissa. He had planned to rob her. He tried to tie her up using plastic zip ties, but Julissa fought back. She screamed loudly and tried to run, but Philip shot her 3 times and then ran away. Philip was a 23-year-old medical student. He was smart, well-behaved, and from a good family. His parents were divorced, but both remarried, and Philip stayed close with them. No one suspected anything bad about him. He had a normal life, went to college, and volunteered at a hospital. That's where he met his fiancée, Megan. They dated for 3 years and got engaged. Their wedding was planned for August 14, 2009. But behind Megan's back, Philip was living a secret life. He was $130,000 in debt and had a serious gambling problem. In 2008, he started reaching out to people through Craigslist. He would search for certain kinds of ads and send messages, including inappropriate photos. Sometimes he even pretended to be a woman. While planning his wedding, Philip was also setting up meetings with women through Craigslist. On the outside, he looked like a good guy. No one knew he was hiding something so dark. After killing Jalissa Phillip, he acted as if nothing had happened. He went home, greeted his fiancée, and slept peacefully. The next day, he arranged another meeting with a woman named Tricia Leffler. Once again, he met her in a hotel, tied her up, and robbed her. This time, he didn't kill her. He left her tied up and went home like nothing had happened. Then just one day later, he did it again. He met another woman named Cynthia Melton. He pulled a gun on her, tied her up, and demanded money. He told her, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you." But at that moment, Cynthia's husband walked into the hotel room. Shocked and scared, the husband ran away. Philip also ran away, likely scared that the police would now be after him. By this time, news about the so-called Craigslist killer was everywhere. People were scared, and many stopped using Craigslist. But Philip had made mistakes. Each time he messaged someone, his computer left a trail, email records, and IP addresses. Security cameras also recorded his movements in the hotels. The police followed these clues and traced them back to an apartment building in Boston. They compared CCTV footage with photos of Philip and realized it was him. On April 20th, they pulled him over while he was driving with Megan and arrested him. Megan had no idea what was going on. When police searched Philip's apartment, they found zip ties, bullets, cash, and even a pair of underwear from one of the women. They also found a USB drive with messages he had exchanged with Julissa Brisman. Even with all this evidence, Megan at first didn't believe it. She said Philip was a good man who wouldn't hurt anyone. But after visiting him in jail, something changed. She broke off the engagement and told him she would never see him again. In August 2010, while in jail, using his medical expertise, he made precise incisions designed to bring about a fatal outcome and to ensure the process couldn't be interrupted. He also stuffed paper in his mouth and covered his head with a bag. Before he died, he wrote one last word on the wall of his cell: Megan. The Santoya Brown Case, 2004. On August 6, 2004, in Nashville, Tennessee, a 43-year-old man named Johnny Allen met 16-year-old Santoya Brown in a parking lot. He asked her if she wanted food and if she was open to any action. After talking for a bit, they agreed to be intimate for $150. Brown got into his truck and they drove to his house. However, once at his house, they didn't do anything. Later, as Allen was lying in bed, Brown took a gun from her purse and shot him in the back of the head, killing him instantly. She took 2 of his guns and about $172 in cash from his wallet. Then she stole his truck, drove it to a parking lot, and left it there. Brown returned to a hotel room where she had been staying with a man named Darian McLaughlin. He was a drug dealer and robber who acted as her pimp. He was killed just months later in 2005. The next day, on August 7th, police found Allen's body. Brown had actually used Allen's phone to call 911 and report a homicide, giving only the address. When police found her at the hotel, they found the stolen cash, guns, Allen's phone, and the key to his truck. During questioning, Brown said she felt scared because Allen had been acting weird. She claimed she thought he was reaching under the bed for a gun, so she shot him in self-defense. However, no gun was found under the bed, and Allen was sleeping when he was shot. Brown also said she wasn't doing this kind of work usually, and was just staying at different places. But evidence showed otherwise. She was charged with murder and other crimes. A recording later revealed that she told her mother she had executed Allen. She also admitted the same thing during an attack on a nurse at a mental health center while in custody. Brown had written notes saying she lied about being scared and didn't really believe Allen had a gun. During her trial, a mental health expert said that Brown had been using drugs since she was 13 and had a condition called borderline personality disorder. This disorder causes unstable emotions in relationships. The expert said this could explain her actions, but admitted it wouldn't fully explain why she killed someone she had just met. Other experts said she had high intelligence, an IQ of 120 or even 134 later, but also had trouble thinking clearly and dealing with reality. One even said that at the time of the crime, her understanding of language was like that of a 10-year-old. Her history of being used and abused by men was also brought up during the trial. Brown was found guilty of first-degree murder, felony murder, and robbery. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 51 years. She tried to appeal, but her appeal was denied. In 2017, celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Rihanna, and LeBron James helped bring attention to her case. Many people felt her sentence was too harsh, considering her age, history of abuse, and mental health issues. A clemency hearing was held in 2018. Some parole board members thought she should stay in prison. Others said 25 years or 15 years was more fair. In January 2019, the governor of Tennessee reduced her sentence to 15 years with 10 years of probation. Brown was released from prison in August 2019. The Channon Christian and Christopher Newsom murders, 2007. On January 6, 2007, 21-year-old Shannon Christian and her boyfriend, 23-year-old Chris Newsom, were planning to go out for dinner in Knoxville, Tennessee. Shannon was a student at the University of Tennessee and worked 2 jobs. Chris worked as a carpenter. They had only been dating for about 3 months. That evening, Shannon went to a friend's apartment to get ready. Chris came to pick her up around 9 p.m. They hugged near her car in the parking lot before getting in. Sadly, at that moment, 4 men were watching them. These men were Lamarcus Davidson, his brother Latalvis Cobbins, and their friends George Thomas and Eric Boyd. Davidson was a known drug dealer. The group planned to do a carjacking. They didn't know Shannon or Chris. They just saw them standing alone and decided to attack. They pointed a gun at the couple and forced them into Shannon's car. Their hands were tied, and they were driven to Davidson's rented house. A woman named Vanessa Coleman was already at the house when they arrived. The plan might have just been robbery at first, but things quickly became much worse. At the house, Shannon and Chris were separated and tied up. What happened next was terrible. Chris was attacked first. He was assaulted, tortured with objects, and beaten badly. Later that night, the men forced him to walk outside to some railroad tracks. It was cold, and Chris was only wearing a t-shirt and underwear. His hands were still tied, and his mouth was gagged. At the tracks, Chris was shot several times. The initial attempt didn't end his life. Even after severe spine injury, he was still holding on. It wasn't until a third, final, and devastating shot that his struggle ended. Afterward, an attempt was made to conceal what had happened. His remains were subjected to fire in what appeared to be an effort to cover the tracks. While Chris's suffering lasted a few hours, Shannon's torture continued much longer. Shannon was beaten and abused in many ways over the next 24 hours. The attackers used several objects to hit and hurt her. Her injuries were severe. They went so far as to force her to drink a harmful substance and even used it on her body to eliminate any trace of what they had done. Then they tied her up tightly in a painful position with her knees pulled to her chest and her head pushed forward. She was gagged and wrapped in 5 plastic garbage bags. Still alive, she was placed into a trash can in the kitchen and left there. She died slowly from being unable to breathe in the small space. It likely took her 10 to 30 minutes to die. Chris's body was found by a railroad worker the next day. Shannon's car was found on Monday. Fingerprints inside led police to Davidson's house. When police searched it, they found Shannon's body inside the trash can. DNA from Shannon's body matched Davidson and Cobbins. Soon all 5 people involved were arrested. Davidson was hiding in an abandoned house. Eric Boyd helped police find him after he was arrested. In the end, Lamarcus Davidson received the death penalty, while Latalvis Cobbins was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. George Thomas was initially given 127 years, later reduced to 50 after he agreed to testify. Eric Boyd was first sentenced to 18 years, but following the emergence of additional evidence, his sentence was increased to life in prison. Vanessa Coleman, who was present during the crimes but took no action to stop them, was sentenced to 53 years later, reduced to 35. All of them are still in prison today. The Brianna Dennison murder, 2008. Brianna Dennison was a 19-year-old college student from Reno, Nevada. She was smart, kind, and well-loved by her friends and family. Her mom gave her the nickname Breezy because she brought joy to everyone around her. Brianna had a tough childhood. When she was 6, her father passed away. It was hard on her and her family, but they stayed strong and moved forward. Brianna grew up to be a happy and friendly young woman. She wanted to become a child psychologist to help kids and was studying at Santa Barbara City College in California. She often returned home to Reno during school breaks to see her family and best friend, KT Hunter. In January 2008, Brianna came home for winter break. On January 19th, she went out with her friends to a snowboard convention and later to a concert. They ended the night by eating at a diner and then returned to KT Hunter's house. KT and another friend slept in their rooms while Brianna slept on the couch. The next morning, Brianna was gone. Her purse, shoes, and phone were still at the house, but she was missing. More worrying, there was a small blood stain on the pillow she had slept on. KT quickly called the police. The police arrived and started investigating. They found some skin cells on the back door handle of the house. When they tested the DNA, it matched DNA from another unsolved case, a foreign exchange student who had been assaulted near the University of Nevada, Reno. The student had remembered some details. Her attacker was a white man who drove a white Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. Even though she didn't see his face clearly, her memory of the truck helped police narrow it down to a 2005 or 2006 model. About a month later, a body was found. A man walking during his lunch break noticed orange socks on the ground. Sadly, those socks belonged to Brianna. Her body was found nearby. She had likely been dead for about a week or two. Police found women's underwear near her body and tested them. The DNA on them matched the same man from the earlier case and the one from KT Hunter's house. They were now sure the same man was responsible for all of it. Still, they didn't know who he was until months later when an anonymous tip came in. A woman told a non-profit group called Secret Witness that her friend had found women's underwear in her boyfriend's truck. That man's name was James Michael Biela. When police looked into him, they discovered he had a history of violence against women. They asked his girlfriend if they could take a DNA sample from their young son. The test showed that whoever left the DNA at the crime scenes was a close relative of the boy, most likely his father, James Biela. Police arrested Biela and questioned him. He denied everything, but his girlfriend said he had been gone during the night. Biela had also sold his old truck, which matched the one described by the earlier victim, a white Toyota Tacoma extended cab. DNA samples taken directly from Biela matched those found on Brianna and in the other assaults. With this strong evidence, he was charged with the kidnapping and murder of Brianna Dennison, along with multiple other assaults. In May 2010, Biela went to trial. His lawyers tried to explain away the DNA evidence, but the case against him was too strong. On May 27, 2010, he was found guilty, and a few days later, he was sentenced to death. Since then, Biela has appealed many times, but each time the courts have upheld the original ruling. Even though this was a tragic case, something good came out of it. A law called Brianna's Law was passed, which requires that DNA be collected from anyone arrested for a felony in Nevada. Annie Lee was a smart, kind, and hardworking young woman. She was born in 1985 in San Jose, California, to parents who had moved from Vietnam. Annie was raised by her aunt and uncle in Placerville, California, while her parents went through a divorce. Even as a child, Annie was very bright. She loved science and math, and she worked hard in school. In high school, her classmates called her the next Einstein. She graduated as the top student in her class in 2003. Annie got a full scholarship to study biology at the University of Rochester in New York. There she met her boyfriend, Jonathan Wadowski. They fell in love and got engaged. Annie later earned a spot in the graduate program at Yale University, where she was studying pharmacology. Her goal was to find treatments for diseases like cancer and diabetes. In 2009, Annie was living in New Haven and working in a lab at Yale. She was only 5 days away from her wedding. On the morning of September 8th, she left her office to check on the lab mice she used for research. Security cameras showed her entering the building, but she was never seen leaving. Her phone, wallet, and purse were still in her office. When Annie didn't return home that night, her roommates got worried and called the police. At first, investigators thought she may have run away due to wedding stress, but her friends and family said she was excited to get married and had no reason to leave. Police searched the lab building carefully. On September 13th, the day she was supposed to get married, Annie's body was found hidden inside a wall in the basement of the lab. She had been strangled. Soon, police began focusing on Raymond Clark, a lab technician who worked with Annie. He was known for being strict and controlling in the lab. Some coworkers said he got angry easily and had a bad temper. Clark had also once sent Annie an email complaining about how she took care of the lab animals. Clark became the main suspect. Keycard records showed that he was the last person in the lab with Annie and had stayed there for almost an hour after she likely died. He moved between different rooms that day, possibly to hide her body. When police found her body, they also found his green pen dropped at the scene. Clark later tried to come back to get it. Police saw bruises and scratches on Clark's face and arms. He at first said he hadn't seen Annie that day, but this was easily proven false. When asked to take a lie detector test, he failed and asked for a lawyer. DNA tests confirmed that Clark's DNA was on Annie's clothes and body. Her blood was also found on his boots. On September 17, 2009, Clark was arrested and charged with murder. At first, Clark denied killing Annie, but later he pleaded guilty to murder and attempted assault. On June 3, 2011, he was sentenced to 44 years in prison. In court, he said, "I am truly sorry that I took Annie Lee's life. I loved her very much." After Annie's death, Yale University looked at its campus safety and made changes to try to prevent anything like this from happening again. Annie Lee was a talented and caring young woman with a bright future, but her life was sadly taken just days before her wedding. The murder of Denise Amber Lee, 2008. Most of us grow up believing that if something bad happens, we can call 911 for help. But in the case of Denise Amber Lee, 911 failed her. Even though 4 separate calls were made that could have saved her, it was too late by the time police acted. Denise was born on August 6, 1986, in Inglewood, Florida. Her dad, Rick, was a retired police detective. Denise was a quiet and responsible young woman. In high school, she met Nate Lee. He was outgoing and she was shy, but she surprised everyone by asking him out first. They quickly fell in love. Just 3 days after their first date, Nate gave her a small ring with a heart on it for Valentine's Day. Denise wore it every day. A year and a half later, they got married. They had 2 young sons, Noah and Adam, and Denise stayed home to raise them while Nate worked 3 jobs. Money was tight, so they rented a house in a quiet but not so safe area in Northport, Florida. Denise's parents were worried about the location, but the couple was happy. Everything changed on January 17, 2008. Nate left early for work, and Denise stayed home with the kids. Around 11 a.m., they spoke on the phone. Nate reminded her to open the windows to save on air conditioning, and she said she already had. Later that day, Nate tried calling Denise again, but she didn't answer. That was unusual. He called her 8 times on his way home, but there was no response. When he got home, he found their kids in the same crib and the house hot with the windows pushed down but not locked. Denise's phone and keys were still there, which was a bad sign. Nate immediately called 911 and reported Denise missing. But police didn't act fast. They thought she might have left on her own, which often happens in missing spouse cases. Nate called Denise's dad, Rick, who rushed to the police station and demanded action. Soon a neighbor said she had seen a white man in a green Camaro parked in Denise's driveway earlier that day. That tip led police to put out a be-on-the-lookout alert for the green car. Then the most important call came in. It was from Denise herself. Somehow she had gotten hold of her kidnapper's phone and secretly called 911. She cleverly gave the operator her name, her address, and details about the car and the man. She made it sound like she was talking to her kidnapper, so he wouldn't catch on. But after a few minutes, he realized she had the phone, took it away, and ended the call. The police now knew who the phone belonged to. Michael King, a 36-year-old unemployed plumber. No one in Denise's family had ever heard of him. He had a dark past of inappropriate behavior, but none of it had been officially reported. Later, his cousin's daughter called 911. She said King had stopped at their house and borrowed a shovel and gas can. Denise was tied up in his car. Another 911 call came from a woman named Jane, who saw a woman screaming in the back of a green Camaro. She offered to follow the car, but the 911 operator didn't take it seriously and didn't pass on the message. Jane was the last person to see Denise alive. That night, police arrested Michael King. He was wet, his phone battery was removed, and a muddy shovel was in his trunk. 2 days later, police found Denise's body. She had been attacked and killed, then buried in a marsh. She was only 21. In the end, Michael King was sentenced to death. Sadly, many people believe Denise could have been saved if 911 dispatchers had done their jobs. Denise's husband started the Denise Amber Lee Foundation to help improve how 911 centers respond to calls, so something like this never happens again. The Runaway Bride Hoax, Jennifer Wilbanks, 2005. In April 2005, in the city of Duluth, Georgia, a woman named Jennifer Wilbanks suddenly went missing just 4 days before her wedding. Her disappearance became big news, and many people, including police and volunteers, searched for her. Jennifer was 32 years old. She had lived in Georgia all her life. She met her fiancé John Mason in Duluth. John was also 32 and his family was wealthy. They owned a medical clinic in town. People said John was a nice and caring person. The couple had been dating for about a year and looked very happy together. Their wedding was planned for April 30th, 2005, and around 600 guests were invited. But on April 26th, John reported that Jennifer went out for a jog and never came back. He looked for her himself, but then told the police when he couldn't find her. A big search began the next day. Over 300 officers and volunteers joined, searching nearby woods and water. The police even used officers who were supposed to be off duty. Some clothes, sneakers, and hair were found, but these later turned out to have nothing to do with Jennifer. Her family handed out flyers and spoke to the media, asking for help. The story quickly spread across the country. By April 28th, police treated the case as a possible crime. The FBI and Georgia Bureau of Investigation joined in. People began to suspect John, especially since he was the last person to see her. He refused to take a police lie detector test, but did one privately with his lawyer. This made people even more suspicious. Police searched their home again, but found no signs of a struggle or crime. Jennifer's family offered a $100,000 reward for information. But by April 29th, the police said they were ending the search because they had no leads. That night, John got a surprising phone call. It was Jennifer. She said she had been kidnapped, taken far away, and then let go. She didn't know where she was. Soon after she called 911, police traced the call to Albuquerque, New Mexico, more than 1,400 miles away. When officers found Jennifer, she told them she had been kidnapped by a man and woman in a blue van. But something seemed wrong. Her story didn't match her appearance. FBI agents quickly found problems in her story. After some questions, Jennifer admitted she had lied. She had not been kidnapped. She had simply run away. Jennifer explained she felt too much pressure from planning the big wedding and needed to escape. She took a bus to New Mexico and hid there. Reporters later found out she had a criminal past, including shoplifting. Although she was safe, the state had spent nearly $60,000 searching for her. She returned to Duluth, quietly covering her face. The wedding was canceled. Police said she just couldn't handle all the stress.
That's the way.
John Mason, though wrongly suspected, had nothing to do with her disappearance. Jennifer became known as the runaway bride. She later apologized to her family and friends. John still gave her back the engagement ring, saying he still wanted to marry her. On May 9, 2005, Jennifer went to get help for mental and emotional issues. But by May 25th, she was charged with making false statements. She could have gone to prison for 5 years, but took a plea deal. She got 2 years probation, had to do 120 hours of community service, and pay over $15,000 in fines. Later, she and John broke up. Jennifer sued him, saying he sold their story and used the money to buy a house. John said he was emotionally hurt and countersued. In the end, they dropped the lawsuits. Jennifer became a short-lived media figure. A toy company even made a runaway bride doll. A musical was made about her story in 2008. Jennifer married someone else in 2010, but the marriage ended years later. She still lives in Georgia. The Barbecue Killer, Catherine Knight, 2000. Most families enjoy a quiet evening and a warm dinner. But imagine looking down at your stew and seeing a finger floating in it. That's when you know something is very wrong. This is the shocking story of Catherine Knight, one of the most disturbing cases in Australia. Catherine Knight was born in 1955 in a small town in New South Wales, Australia. Her home life was very hard. Her father, Ken, was violent and drank a lot. Her mother, Barbara, often told the children how much she hated men. Catherine also said she was abused, but it's not clear by who. At school, Catherine was a loner and a bully. She once attacked a student and even hurt a teacher. She left school at age 15 without learning how to read or write. Her dream job was to work in a slaughterhouse, and she got hired at one. She even kept her butcher knives above her bed, saying she wanted them close in case she needed them.
Not bad.
At 18, she met David Kellett, a man with a drinking problem. They married in 1974. Catherine's mom warned David that Catherine could be very dangerous. On their wedding night, she tried to strangle him. Their relationship was full of violence. While pregnant with their first daughter, Melissa, she hit David with a frying pan so hard he had a fractured skull. Even then, David forgave her. But things got worse. After David left her, Catherine had a mental breakdown. She pushed Melissa in a stroller down the street, then flipped it over in public. Later, she placed the baby on train tracks and chased people with an axe. Thankfully, someone saved the baby. Catherine was taken to a hospital but released quickly. Soon after, she attacked a woman with a knife and tried to force her to drive to find David. She even took a man hostage. Police caught her, but she was still released not long after. Catherine had more relationships. In one, she killed her boyfriend's puppy to scare him. In another, she stabbed her partner and hit him with an iron. Still, these men kept going back to her, even after all the abuse. In the 1990s, she began dating John Price, a well-liked man with kids. Their relationship was full of fights. Catherine once got John fired from his job out of revenge. He kicked her out, but later let her back in his life. In early 2000, after more violence, John got a restraining order. He told friends that if he died, it would be because of Catherine. Sadly, he was right. One night, after sending his kids away, Catherine came to his house. After they slept together, she waited until he was asleep and stabbed him 37 times. What she did next was horrifying. She turned him into a twisted homemade meal. She set the table for his children, planning to trick them into eating it. She also left behind a strange, unsettling note. Thankfully, before any of the children could eat, the police arrived, and the scene was so disturbing that some officers quit afterward. Catherine was found in a coma after taking pills, but later woke up. In court, Catherine first said she wasn't guilty, but later changed her plea. In 2001, she was given life in prison with no chance of release, the first woman in Australia to get that sentence. In 2006, she tried to appeal, but the court refused, saying the crime was beyond imagination. John Price was a kind man who didn't deserve what happened to him. Catherine Knight, on the other hand, is remembered as one of the most dangerous women in Australia. The murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart, 2006. Pocatello is a small city in the state of Idaho. It is a quiet, close-knit community where many people belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. People in Pocatello are proud of their town and feel safe living there. But in 2006, the city became known for something truly tragic: the shocking murder of a young girl named Cassie Jo Stoddart. Cassie was born just before Christmas in 1989. She was a smart and kind girl who got good grades and stayed out of trouble. She was trusted by her family, so when her aunt and uncle, Allison and Frank Contreras, needed someone to take care of their house and pets while they were away, they asked Cassie. On the night of September 22, 2006, Cassie went to their home on Whispering Cliffs Drive. She invited her boyfriend Matt Beckham over. Later, two classmates, Brian Draper and Tori Adamsick, also came by. Cassie gave them a tour of the house, and then the group watched a movie together. After some time, Brian and Tori said they were going to the cinema and left. Cassie and Matt continued watching the movie. Suddenly, the power went out. This made Cassie nervous, but the power soon came back. One of the dogs started barking at the basement, but Matt didn't think much of it. Matt wanted to stay with Cassie because she was scared, but his mom said no. She offered to let Cassie stay at their house instead, but Cassie felt it was her job to stay at the house. Matt's mom picked him up around 10:30 p.m. 2 days later, Cassie's family returned home. Her 13-year-old cousin found her lying dead in the living room. She had been stabbed about 30 times. Police began an investigation. Just 3 days later, they arrested Brian Draper and Tori Adamsick, the same boys who had visited Cassie that night. People were shocked. These boys had been her classmates and friends. During questioning, the boys confessed. They had planned the murder. Before they left that night, Brian had secretly unlocked the basement door so they could sneak back in. After leaving the house, they changed into dark clothes and returned. They entered through the basement, cut the power, and waited for Cassie and Matt to come downstairs. When that didn't happen, they turned the power back on and waited again. After Matt left, they cut the power one more time, scared Cassie by slamming a door, then attacked her. Police found several items they had tried to burn, including a videotape, masks, gloves, and a note describing their plan. On the tape, they talked about killing Cassie. One even said they were excited about it. The plan was inspired by horror movies and real-life criminals. Brian said he looked up to the Columbine shooters. Tori said he was influenced by the movie Scream. Both boys were charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. They also got extra time for planning the crime. Since they were under 18, their sentences may be reviewed in the future, but so far all their appeals have failed. They are both serving their sentences in Idaho. Cassie's family was deeply hurt. They never went back to the house where she was killed. They tried to sue the school district, saying the boys were dangerous and should have been stopped, but the court said the school wasn't responsible. Cassie's story shocked the whole country. Her family continues to speak out, hoping to keep her memory alive. Cassie was a smart, caring, and hard-working young girl. Her life was taken in the most horrible way, and she will never be forgotten. The Seth Gonzalez Murders, 2001. This is the story of a Filipino family, the Gonzalez family. They were once very close and loving, but in just 3 hours their happy life was completely destroyed. This story mainly focuses on their eldest son, Seth Gonzalez. Seth was born on September 16, 1980, in Baguio City, Philippines. His parents, Teddy and Mary Loiva Gonzalez, got married in 1977. 3 years after Seth was born, they had a daughter named Claudine. The family owned several businesses in Baguio and were doing well. In 1990, a powerful earthquake hit Luzon, which people later called the Killer earthquake. Many people died and buildings were destroyed, including a hotel owned by the Gonzalez family. Seth was trapped in the rubble and nearly died. His father, Teddy, saved his life. Later in the 1990s, the family moved to Australia to start a new life. Teddy worked hard and became a successful immigration lawyer. He built a nice home for the family in a place called North Ryde. To outsiders, they seemed like a happy and successful family. But at home, Teddy and Loiva were very strict, especially with Seth. They expected him to succeed and take over the family businesses one day. Seth gave up his dream of studying music and enrolled in a medical science program at the University of New South Wales. He later changed schools but did not do well in his studies. He even faked his grades. When his sister found out and told their parents, they were very angry. They threatened to take away his car and stop giving him money. Seth also argued with his mother about a girlfriend she didn't like. Still, the parents probably thought these were just normal family problems that would pass. On July 10, 2001 at 11:48 p.m., Seth called emergency services in Sydney. He claimed he had found the bodies of his parents and sister. He also ran to the neighbors for help. A few days later, Seth appeared on TV asking the killer to come forward. He even offered a $100,000 reward. But soon Seth began asking about his inheritance. He found out he would receive $1.5 million in Australia and $1.3 million in the Philippines. He also moved to a new apartment and put down a large deposit on a Lexus car. He told the dealership he would pay with inheritance money. He also pawned his mother's jewelry and told his relatives he had a brain tumor, asking one of them for $190,000 for surgery, which he never needed. At the family funeral, Seth gave a eulogy and sang a song. Many people found this strange. Police began investigating and found no signs of forced entry at the house. Nothing valuable was stolen. Seth also seemed cold and unemotional. When police interviewed him, his story kept changing. He gave 3 different alibis, but all of them fell apart. They also found an email he had faked trying to blame someone else. On his computer, they saw he had searched for poisons and even ordered toxic plants. Eventually, police believed Seth had killed his sister Claudine first around 4:30 p.m. He used a baseball bat and knives. Then his mother came home at 5:30 p.m. and he attacked her too. His father returned at 6:50 p.m. and was also killed in a similar way. Seth was arrested in 2002 and later found guilty of killing his parents and sister. He was given 3 life sentences without parole. In 2007, he tried to appeal, but the court refused. As of 2020, Seth is still in prison and says he is innocent. But the evidence against him is very strong. Susan Polk case, 2002. Frank Polk was born in Vienna, Austria on June 30, 1932. As a child, he went by the name Felix. When he was very young, war broke out in Europe and his life became dangerous. In 1941, his family moved to the United States to stay safe. They settled in Harrison, New York. Felix's father started a store and the family made some money, but not as much as they had in Austria. Felix started high school late, at age 17. After finishing, he went to college and got his degree in 1953. He then joined the U.S. Navy as an officer. But Felix struggled with anxiety and depression. The Navy noticed he wasn't happy, though they said he adjusted okay. In 1954, he took a break and saw a mental health doctor. He had a hard time with social situations and used alcohol to feel more relaxed. In 1955, Felix was moved by the Navy to Brooklyn, New York. One night after a date, he sat in his car in the garage and started the engine. It looked like he was trying to end things. But after 11 p.m., someone called the police. They found him and saved him just in time. Felix then went to school in Manhattan to study social work and got a job in Hawthorne, New York. In 1960, he married a 20-year-old woman named Sharon Mann. He was later discharged from the Navy for health reasons, and the couple moved to California. They had a son in 1962 and a daughter in 1965. Felix kept studying. He got another degree and a PhD in psychology from the University of California, Berkeley. He even went to England for a special program before returning to California in 1967. He worked for the county and taught at 2 colleges. Sharon taught piano. Their marriage seemed fine. In 1968, Felix started his own private practice. A year later, he quit his county job because he was so busy. In 1971, Felix went to a seminar with a self-proclaimed guru and thought he learned more from that than his whole PhD. This showed that he may have lacked strong critical thinking skills. In 1972, Felix started treating a 15-year-old girl named Susan Bowling. She had panic attacks and behavior problems. Susan said that not long after they began having an inappropriate relationship. Felix then put her in a mental facility run by his friend and said she could only leave if she kept seeing him for counseling. Susan felt trapped. If she didn't agree to the relationship, she feared she'd be sent back. When Susan turned 17, she told her mother about Felix. Her mother was angry and told Felix to stop, but he didn't. On Susan's 18th birthday, she was free to be with him, and they stayed together. Susan told another therapist about it, who contacted Sharon, Felix's wife. Sharon was angry with Susan, not Felix. In 1978, Felix and Sharon separated. Though Susan was losing interest in Felix, he paid her college fees, so she stayed. In 1981, she graduated, and on December 26th, she and Felix got married. The divorce had been costly for Felix. Sharon got the house and $1,500 a month. Felix went into deep debt and even borrowed money from Susan's mother. Still, Felix and Susan took a long trip to Europe and bought a house in Berkeley. But he later told Sharon he couldn't keep up with payments. In 1982, Susan and Felix had growing money problems and relationship troubles. They had 3 sons between 1983 and 1987, but their home was full of fights. All 3 sons had run-ins with the law. By 2001, Susan filed for divorce. Felix moved into the guest house. In 2002, he won more rights in court, including control of the house. When Susan found out, she was furious. On October 13, 2002, after 10 p.m., Susan went to the guest house and stabbed Felix almost 30 times. The next day, she acted like nothing happened. Their son Gabriel later found his father's body and called the police. Susan was arrested. At first, she denied everything, but later admitted she killed Felix, claiming it was self-defense. She said Felix had pulled a knife on her. The court didn't believe her story, and in 2005, she was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 16 years to life in prison. Murder of Adrienne Shelley, 2006. Adrienne Shelley was born as Adrienne Levine on June 24, 1966 in Queens, New York. She grew up on Long Island. When she was about 10 years old, she started acting on stage. Adrienne's father died of a heart attack when she was 12 years old. He had a big influence on her, so she later chose the stage name Shelley to honor him. After high school, Adrienne went to Boston University to study film. She left college before finishing her degree and moved to Manhattan to become an actress. She got her big break in a movie called The Unbelievable Truth in 1989. In 1990, she starred in another film called Trust. Her acting career began to grow, and she also appeared in TV shows and theater plays. Over time, Adrienne started writing and directing her own projects. One of her most well-known works was a movie called Waitress, which was released in 2007 after her death. Adrienne had a hard time finding love for many years, but in 2001, she met a man named Andrew Ostroy on Match.com. Andrew had been divorced twice and had 3 kids. He was the CEO of a marketing company. The two got married in 2002 and had a daughter named Sophie in 2003. On November 1, 2006, Andrew dropped Adrienne off at an apartment building in Manhattan. She used a 4th-floor apartment there as her office. Later that day, a 19-year-old man named Diego Pilco, who was working construction in the building, killed Adrienne. Diego was from Ecuador and was in the U.S. illegally. He had been working on the 3rd floor when he went up to Adrienne's office. He strangled her and then tried to make it look like she had done it to herself. He tied a bed sheet around her neck and hung her body in the bathroom. Andrew couldn't reach Adrienne all day and became worried. He went to the apartment and asked the doorman for help. Together, they found Adrienne's body at around 5:45 p.m. At first, the police thought Adrienne had done it to herself and closed the case. But Andrew didn't believe it. He kept pushing the police to look deeper. He also brought in a famous doctor, Michael Baden, to look at her body. Dr. Baden said Adrienne had bruises and other signs that showed she had been attacked. Some other experts disagreed, but Andrew's efforts made the police take another look. Police searched the apartment again. They found a sneaker print on the toilet. They figured out it was from a Reebok sneaker. No one connected to Adrienne wore those shoes, not even the police officers who had been in the apartment. The police then learned about the construction work on the floor below Adrienne's office. When they looked at the workers' shoes, they found that Diego's sneakers matched the print. He was arrested on November 6. He soon confessed to killing Adrienne. At first, Diego said Adrienne got angry at him for making noise. He said she slapped him, and he hit her back. She fell and hit her head. Thinking she was dead, he staged the scene to avoid getting in trouble. Later, he changed his story and said he followed her into her apartment to rob her. When she caught him, he choked her with his hands, then used the bedsheet to make it look like something else had happened. In the end, Diego agreed to a deal. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter and got 25 years in prison with no chance of parole. He may get a few years off for good behavior and will be sent back to Ecuador when he is released. Years later, Adrienne's husband Andrew made a documentary about her life and death. In it, he visited Diego in prison. Diego gave yet another version of what happened, but he still wasn't honest. The truth remains that Adrienne was a talented woman whose life was taken too soon. Thomas and Jackie Hawks, 2004. Tom and Jackie Hawks were a happy retired couple. Tom had worked as a probation officer, and Jackie stayed home and helped raise his two sons from a past marriage. They lived on a beautiful 55-foot boat called Well Deserved and sailed around the Pacific Ocean. They loved adventure, but in 2004 they decided to sell the boat. They wanted to move to Arizona and spend more time with their new grandson. Instead of using a broker, they put an ad in a magazine to sell the boat themselves. Soon a young couple, Skylar and Jennifer DeLeon, said they wanted to buy it. Tom and Jackie met them, and the DeLeons asked to take the boat out for a test ride on November 15th. Skylar didn't come alone. He brought two other men with him, John Kennedy and Alonso Machain. Tom, being a former probation officer, could tell something felt wrong. He didn't trust them, but Skylar's wife Jennifer used their baby to make things seem normal. She stayed behind at the dock and waved goodbye with her child, making Tom and Jackie feel safer. Once they were out at sea, the men attacked. Tom was strong and tried to fight back, but they used a taser on him. They tied up both Tom and Jackie, taped their eyes and mouths, and made them sign papers giving away the boat and control of their money. Jackie was smart. She made a small mistake on purpose when signing her name. This later helped police know something was wrong. After signing, Tom and Jackie were taken to the back of the boat. Skylar tied them to a heavy anchor. Jackie begged them to stop and let them live so they could see their grandson grow up. Then they were thrown overboard. Their bodies were never found. Skylar and Jennifer had planned this together. They were deep in debt and wanted money. Skylar also wanted to use the money for gender transition surgery. This wasn't the first time Skylar had killed. In 2003, he murdered a man named John Jarvie for $50,000 by tricking him into going to Mexico. After the Hawks disappeared, friends and family got worried. Tom's brother was a former police chief. He checked the boat and saw things out of place. Soon, police started looking into Skylar and Jennifer. Their story didn't make sense. The Hawks never deposited any money from the boat sale, and their car was missing. Later, a tip came from Mexico. A couple had seen the Hawks' car there. It turned out Skylar and Jennifer gave the car to someone. Police arrested Skylar for money crimes while they kept looking for murder evidence. In the DeLeon's home, they found the Hawks' laptop and camera. Skylar and Jennifer had even filmed themselves having Thanksgiving just weeks after the killings. Eventually, Alonso Machain agreed to tell the truth in exchange for a lighter sentence. He said Skylar told him he was a hitman and that the Hawks were evil. It wasn't true, of course. Skylar just wanted money. All 4 people involved were arrested. Alonso got 20 years. Jennifer got life in prison without parole. John Kennedy and Skylar got the death penalty. Years later, Skylar tried to hurt himself in prison. He was later given hormone treatments, and his gender was changed in official records to female. He asked to move to a women's prison, but was still in San Quentin as of 2019. Tom and Jackie never got to enjoy their retirement with their grandson. Their lives were taken by people who only cared about money. The Mary Winkler case, 2006. Mary Winkler was born on December 10, 1973, in Tennessee. She grew up in Knoxville. Her dad worked in real estate and her mom was a teacher. Mary finished high school in 1992 and went to college in Henderson, Tennessee. People said she was a good student and very religious. While in college, Mary met a man named Matthew Winkler. They fell in love and got married in 1996. Matthew came from a family of preachers and wanted to be one too. In 1997, both Mary and Matthew left college because of money problems. Matthew started teaching Bible classes. The couple had 3 daughters, Patricia, Mary Alice, and Brianna. In 2005, the family moved to Selmer, Tennessee, where Matthew became a preacher at the 4th Street Church of Christ. At first, things seemed normal. On March 21, 2006, Mary started a job as a substitute teacher. Her co-workers noticed she was often on the phone. That evening, the family ate pizza and watched a movie, and Mary and Matthew went to bed after spending some time together. The next morning, their youngest daughter, Brianna, woke up crying. Matthew tried to calm her but got upset. He believed taking care of the baby was Mary's job. After Mary took care of Brianna, she went downstairs to make coffee. Then she came back up and got a shotgun from the bedroom closet. Mary walked to the bed, pointed the gun at Matthew's back, and shot him. He rolled off the bed, badly hurt. Their oldest daughter, Patricia, heard the loud noise and came into the room. She saw her father on the floor, bleeding and groaning. Mary told her that Daddy is hurt and that they had to leave. Mary put her 3 daughters in the minivan and drove away. That night, church members found Matthew's body after he missed a Bible study. The police began searching for Mary and the children. At first, they thought someone had broken into the home and kidnapped the family. The police found Mary and her kids 350 miles away in Orange Beach, Alabama. The gun was in her van. Mary was arrested and taken back to Tennessee. She told the police she had shot Matthew, but said she didn't mean to kill him. She also said she didn't remember getting the gun and didn't even know there was one in the house. Mary told police she and Matthew were arguing about money. She had been tricked in a scam and lost around $17,000 by cashing fake checks from people in Nigeria and Canada. Matthew was angry about the money, and according to Mary, he also criticized her appearance and behavior. She said she finally snapped. Mary said she only picked up the shotgun to make Matthew talk to her seriously. She didn't plan to shoot him, but the gun went off and he was badly wounded. She said she ran away because she was scared. At her trial in 2007, Mary said Matthew was sometimes mean to her. She said he forced her to wear wigs and high heels during intimate moments. Some people believed her while others didn't. In the end, the jury didn't think she planned the killing, so they found her guilty of voluntary manslaughter instead of murder. Mary was sentenced to 210 days in jail, but only served about a week more because she got credit for time served and finished the rest in a mental health center. After that, she was on probation for 3 years. In 2008, she got custody of her daughters. Some people think Mary should have been found guilty of a more serious crime. Others believe she was mistreated and couldn't take it anymore. Mary later said she thought her time in jail was too short. On that, many people agreed with her.